It's either like middle-class people or the kids of middle-class people.
Yeah, so very good networking, very good, potential future guests for Brainfood Live, which we're always desperate for. We always need a herd of people to turn up and help us chat through these things.
Not so much here. Talent acquisition manager for a big engineering company just walked past me a few minutes ago, straight out to the paddle court. So he's not tuning in, unfortunately.
Disgraceful. You should grab him next time. We'll have an impromptu guest onto the show. Anyway, welcome everybody to Brainfood Live on Air, bringing it to you every Friday, no fail. It's a beautiful sunny afternoon here in London, and it's episode 331. And today, we've actually got a really interesting and I think very important topic for us. And it kind of chimes very nicely with some of the technology innovations that we've been seeing into the market, even in the last 2 or 3 months or so. So within that very short sort of post-summer segment, we've seen some tremendous changes, I think, in the technology landscape, which is going to change the way in which recruiters work. Every organization out there, every technology out there is rolling out some form of AI agent. You're going to see co-pilots everywhere. You're going to see sort of different types of technology helping us do the job of recruiting in a way, perhaps even 12 months or so ago, we might not have imagined to be the case. So the question for us today is, if these technologies do in fact do a lot of the heavy lift for us, will they change the time distribution over tasks that we recruiters currently do? And if so, how do we then measure recruiter performance, folks? Do we need to have a new set of measures? Do we change the numbers? Is it the same measures? We just change the scale of it. That's the topic of today. Do we need new recruitment KPIs for tomorrow's talent acquisition? If you're a recruitment leader, if you're a person who's kind of operating under some sort of KPI system, or if you're just someone interested to speculate with us as to how the future of recruitment looks like, then this is the show for you. Okay, before we kick off, let me just quickly do some sound and AV checks. So, folks, if you're watching this on Crowdcast, let me know if the audio is okay. You should see myself and a rather ruddy-looking Adam Gordon here. It looks like it's caught the last of the summer sun, to be honest, and on screen. And you should also be seeing this on LinkedIn. I think a bunch of people are LinkedIn living us with us today, including myself. 100 plus people watching this on LinkedIn on my channel. Thank you very much, all my LinkedIn followers. Fantastic stuff. If you're watching this on LinkedIn, let me know whether the audio and visual is fine. Just drop me a comment in the comment thread. And we just want to make sure that everyone can hear and see us okay. Oh, yeah, by the way, we also have like a massive week of HR events, HR tech events, don't we? Like HR tech happened, Workday Rising happened, loads of different things going on. So if you're in any of those places or have got any information to report from those places, do drop in and let me know. Okay, cool. We have Adam Gordon here. Adam, great to see you, mate. How was life?
Well, life is especially good because you inspired me a couple of weeks ago with a post from Brazil where you were consuming a nice beverage that you likened to, back in the day, old school dandelion and burdock. So what did I do? I got myself a full case of dandelion and burdock.
Oh, there he is.
Got
He's on brand as well.
For Brainfood Live.
Guys, it's going to be the unofficial sponsor for Brainfood Live going forward. Do you run a dandelion and burdock brand? If so, just get in touch because I'm going to slap your brand all over what we're doing. And the reason why is because, folks, it is the best drink on the planet. And it was a classic in grocery shops in the 1980s in the UK. But the big supermarkets basically took over that business. And the little grocers were the only ones kind of stocking it. And everything became like Coke and Pop and stuff like that. No bueno. We want to bring back dandelion and burdock, folks. And by the way,
although you say the little grocers are the ones who stock it, I got my supply from a little grocer called Amazon.com.
But I tell you something, mate. Nostalgia economy is going to come back in a big way. So you're looking at, what was it, rhubarb and custard sweets, those hardball things coming back. You're looking at Dandelion Burdock coming back, mate. There you go, Peter Barry, correct. Chip shop, pickled eggs in chip shops, that's coming back. So if you want a new business on the side, have a look into that. Anyway, Dandelion Burdock, fantastic. By the way, the Brazilian version of this is not a Brazilian version, independent Brazilian drink called Guaraná. But I tasted it when I was in Rio de Janeiro, and guess what? It tastes almost exactly the same. I think they independently discovered this drink, and it's the #1 pop drink in Brazil. So if you're missing the Dandelion and Burdock and you see a Guaraná, you can buy Guaraná as well. It's the same thing. All right, listen, let's get on with it. We have to talk about sponsors. We have to thank our sponsors firstly, because as ever, Brainfood Live is always sponsored by some great recruitment technology that's prepared to step up and say, Hung Lee, please continue these conversations. Today's sponsor is one of our new faves. It is Team Taylor, of course, one of the most popular ATS technologies in the recruitment Brainfood community. That is for sure. And one of the more user-friendly, good vibes business that we've seen over the last 5-10 years or so. But let me bring on one of our favorite sponsors or guests, actually, Richard Andrews. He's going to tell us all about it. Richard, your beaming smile puts a smile on my face and everyone else's face as well. Great to see you, mate.
Great to see you. Thanks for having the official sponsor of Brainfood Live. Sadly, not Dandelion and Burdock. But don't worry, next time I'll be on with a glass because I've got about 6 bottles in the fridge. Just like you, Adam, got it from Sainsbury's as well. None of these little shops.
We need to bring back Dandelion Burdock. There should be like a little like in group that we discuss this, and this should be the new thing. Anyway, Richard, for the folks who don't know you personally, who are you? What it is you do, mate?
Yeah, no problem at all. So my name is Richard. I'm part of the UK team at Team Taylor. I'm a senior account executive. Absolutely thrilled to be sponsoring today's episode, me and the rest of the team. So just, I suppose, as a quick kickoff, who we are. Team Taylor is an ATS. We were built on the principle of making recruitment fun for users and trying to revolutionize the way that companies actually attract top talent. Obviously, we're now in 2025. We've been going for well over a decade now. Team Taylor is now actually being used to successfully hire more than 845,000 people, which still flabbergasts me today. It's used by 185,000 recruiters globally. We're trusted by 11,000 companies globally. And really, we've achieved this by keeping the dream alive through our development to try and kind of create an industry-leading employer branding kind of capabilities combined with a powerful, intuitive, very easily adopted, simple-to-use ATS, which can be used by anyone from anywhere, from kind of TA directors right through to the rest of the talent team. We're an all-in-one ATS. At the heart, we really focus on things like the career sites, the employer branding, automation. And as you were mentioning AI, yeah, Copilot is definitely everywhere. It's how it's utilized. It's kind of how it's brought to the forefront. I mean, just to kind of, name an example off the top of my head, I was recently actually reading about one of our clients, a company called Ep331. They saved $300,000 using Team Taylor in the space of about a year in recruitment fees. They hired about 35 candidates. In only a few months, they rolled out Team Taylor's ATS across Australia and the US. One of the things which we really focus on is kind of this international expansion side of things. We operate in well over 35 languages. We've got offices across 19 countries, and we operate across 110 countries as a company ourselves as well. It's one of those things which it really does kind of stand out, the international expansion kind of side of things. So, like I said, as an ATS provider, we've kind of rolled out everywhere now. We've got a huge focus at the moment on AI and automation. We offer kind of AI screening criteria across various kind of job boards and job filtering. So anyone who wants to kind of chat to me, anyone who wants to learn how we're sort of revolutionizing the recruitment process, please feel free to reach out. But like I said, just really pleased to be here. Thank you so much for having us on.
No, fantastic. And it wasn't that a brilliant monologue, mate. That was an amazing monologue. Very hard to do, folks. I can't speak for 3 minutes non-stop fluently as that. Richard Andrews, that's your superpower, mate. Fantastic. But I want to touch on the Copilot as well, because that's quite a recent innovation, and it's kind of really aligned with this topic of conversation that we're having today. Like co-pilots are coming into the world of recruitment work, aren't they? So what is the co-pilot at Team Taylor going to do for the current user base? How is it going to help them, and how is it actually going to change maybe their focus and how their jobs might evolve?
So I think the way that it changes the focus is an interesting topic. Actually, the way that I would say the Copilot changes the focus is that it turns the recruitment process bizarrely more human, which I know is kind of counterintuitive from the fact that it's an AI Copilot. But the reason I say it is the biggest challenge that we hear about most of the time is time to hire. I know it's the word on the lips of most TA professionals out there. Using the AI Copilot, we can actually introduce things like screening criteria, which effectively will pull out information for each individual candidate. It'll display it in kind of a Kanban view so that you can very easily go in, stack sort or stack rank candidates based on their suitabilities to the role. But the great thing is it doesn't necessarily filter out the candidates who aren't suitable. It will just simply show where maybe their strengths and weaknesses are in comparison to some of those other top candidates. But the other thing is that we're often hearing is that when candidates aren't successful or if candidates are rejected, if you've got 700 people coming through the door, it's incredibly difficult to actually respond to each of those with anything more than thanks for your time, but goodbye. So the great thing about AI is it'll take the information from the interviews, from the conversations, it'll put it together in a personalized email and get it sent back over. Interestingly enough, a guy called David Nottage at Foot Asylum, he was a great example of how to use this. 30% of candidates who were rejected during the interview stages reapplied using the Connect and talent pool and were actually hired over the course of the next year. Saved a huge amount in terms of recruitment fees, agency fees by kind of utilizing that. So I'd say with AI, it gives your recruiters more time to actually put a human touch on the communication and on the recruitment process, not remove the human touch altogether.
That's really interesting. So let me just understand this particular use case. Basically, these candidates were rejected for, let's say, primary job one, but their experience was such that they decided, you know what, I'm going to reapply if there's another opportunity, and they actually end up getting jobs as a result of that reapplication.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the communication that they were receiving was personalized. I think everyone's been in a position where they've put, 3-4 hours into a job application. Bless her, my wife is a content marketer. She spends days putting together portfolios to get a one-line response of, no, sorry, you're not suitable. It's off-putting. No one wants to put in that work to get that rejection. So having that positive candidate experience, and that goes through from everything. That's from the career side. That's the ease of use. That's for 2 clicks in order to actually join the talent pool in the first place. It's the streamlined version of kind of the application process. So it's not just the AI, but it's every individual module and element kind of feeding into each other. That's also why, as well, at Team Taylor, we don't charge for individual modules. We think it's kind of senseless. Everything needs to feed into each other. So if you buy the platform, you get the platform.
That's fantastic. Folks, teamtaylor.com. I believe it is the .com, isn't it, Richard?
It is indeed. Yes.
Teamtaylor.com. Go check it out. And of course, Richard, I've just shared his link in the LinkedIn, I shared his LinkedIn into the chat stream there. Just go and chat with Richard. He's brilliant, and he's going to be able to take you through sort of what Team Taylor can do for you. If you have an ATS and you're looking to upgrade, if you haven't got an ATS, you're wrestling around still with spreadsheets or whatever, get in touch and see whether you can get a better product. Okay, Richard, brilliant having you, mate. Stay on the call. Let's have a little chat and see where we're at with KPIs.
Thanks very much.
Good stuff. Or an outstanding rep for a business, hey? I really think Richard's fantastic at this. Okay, let's talk about the new KPIs. Adam, you're in this space as well, mate, because you're producing recruitment enablement software. Like, have you thought about this in some way? And have you sort of seen early customers sort of start thinking, you know what, actually, we had all of our guys doing this at one point, but now we're using this technology, and it's, we need to repurpose them somehow. Have you seen any early signs that this might be happening?
Before I answer that question, are we doing the newsletter or not?
Oh, yeah, we should. Very quickly. Go on then.
Just quickly, right? Okay. Well,
the
first one I want to quickly talk about is there's a guy called Hung Lee who wrote something on LinkedIn about OpenAI's new jobs platform. He described it as bull case versus bear case, and the bull case is that it's going to be brimming with AI, fluency data, certifications, native matching, HR and IT expansion opportunities, and long-term tie-in with WorldCoin potentially. But the bear case is that it's peripheral to OpenAI's core sort of thing, shallow usage, weak encoding talent, various other things. My own comments on this particular thing is it was a slow news week for OpenAI, and they just said they're going to do something in the jobs area. And even if they do it, it's really just going to be an extension of their careers site, and everybody who they do not want to hire, they can put them out into middle America. They're not going to be providing this service to Meta or Google. They specifically said it's for government and SMEs. So I don't think it'll ever happen. But if it does happen, it's just going to be a jobs board. It's not a LinkedIn killer, as some people were talking about.
Yeah, I agree. Overhyped, and actually, we did a poll on it, and 60% of my network basically said, you know what, it's going to be damn squib. OpenAI job board, great to see him get him involved. Let's shake it up a little bit, but I think it's too peripheral for their core purpose. So that's what I said on the newsletter. Okay, give us a couple more, mate.
Just yeah. So I was going to do just one more, which is the poll, because you told me to hurry up. But the poll, right? Your poll, will the status of my job go up or down in the next 5 years? And 58%, I think something like that, had said it's going to go down. I think you're wrong. I think it's going to go up. And the reason I wanted to do this one is because it really does tie into the subject of today's Brainfood Live, and that is that the job is going to change. It's going to become much more of an internal management consultant job. It's going to be much more around stuff to do with talent intelligence and how do we structure our company and where should we have our people and what types of people are going to fit with the organization, and which jobs should actually be done by technology and which should not. The job of a recruiter is going to increase in status, I am certain, and not all of us are going to want to do it, but those who will are going to find that they are talking to the CEO and they're talking to the CFO and they're talking to the CMO, etc. So that's my comments on that, which I think leads into the topic of what we're talking about.
It absolutely does. Does the role transform in an upward trajectory as a high status job, which, by the way, usually means less people doing it? Like there is like an exclusivity as you go up. So the highest, if everyone could be a lawyer, it would be a low status job. It's actually very constrained, the numbers of people that actually qualify. Therefore, it becomes more lucrative, more high status. So it could be the future pathway for recruitment is less people, but super AI enabled, the Bersinian super worker recruiter type person, a high status job. So maybe that's the way it is. But we'll also need to think about where we're at with the KPI side of it. So let me just bring on some of our guests. I want to bring on Adriano Herdman first. Always good to see Adriano. But he was the one that actually kicked off this chat in the first place with one of his value drops, I think. We're going to bring on Emma Mirrington, who's in the middle of this survey, by the way, which is exactly one of the time over task surveys with the TA Talent Lab. So I want to bring her on as well. And we've got Neil Morelli, I believe. Let's have a look at Neil. Is he here? Yes,
just while you're bringing our guests on, you asked me a question around am I seeing anything that is helpful to this in the use of the platform that we've built? And I absolutely am, because the solutions that are getting a lot of use are not just things like interview questions and job adverts and building stuff like that. It's very much building talent personas, building competitor intelligence and competitor comparisons, and doing a lot more around things like diversity research and availability research and that type of thing. So I am pleasantly surprised to see that a lot of recruiters are using those things, which actually is giving them knowledge so that they can really develop good strategies for each rec, but it can also guide the hiring managers.
Yeah, so pre-workflow almost. It's like a strategic research element, which is interesting to know. Keep monitoring that, Adam. I think that's good intelligence for us. But we've simultaneously dropped our guests onto the show, which is fantastic. Let's do some intros. Emma, I'm going to go sort of right to left. I see on my screen. Emma, great to see you. Can you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Hi, everyone. Yes, Emma Mirrington, CEO of the Talent Labs, and we are a membership, training and consultancy business for the talent community.
Fantastic. And not only that, but it's one of the biggest and now most venerable sort of communities in certainly the UK. How many people have you got in the membership now, Emma?
Nearly 5,000 now. So yes, quite a few. And we began life as a LinkedIn group about 10 years ago. So we've changed enormously.
There we go. LinkedIn groups. Who remembers that? Amazing stuff. And Emma, by the way, is doing one of these surveys. So Emma, feel free to ping the link to the survey in the chat stream here if you want people to complete.
Amazing. Thank you. Yes, will.
We've got Adriano here as well. Adriano, wonderful to see you. Can you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Hey, everyone. Adriano. I'm co-founder of Move. We're an embedded talent solutions company that supports technology businesses. Great to be here.
Fantastic stuff, and great to have you on the show, Adriano. You did you inspired this with one of your posts. So I will I will dive into that topic first on that particular post in a minute. But let's introduce here Neil Morelli. Wonderful to see you, sir. A debut, I believe, on Brainfood Live. So welcome for your first time. Can you quickly introduce yourself, Neil? Who are you? What it is you do?
Yeah, great to be here. I'm an organizational psychologist and the co-founder of Workplace Labs, and we do AI training for HR.
Fantastic stuff. Welcome. Everyone's links are in the chat stream. Adriano, let's go to you. You kicked it off with this post. Can you give me some ideas to why you wrote it and what the general gist of that post was?
I'm desperately trying to find the specific post. There's been a couple, I think, when you said that. Okay. No, I think just to go to the broadly onto the topic, things are changing fundamentally about how our teams and our people are engaging with hiring managers, right? It's like completely revolutionizing how the job is done. So the way I'm looking at it at the moment is there's a midterm shift, I think, in terms of KPIs. And I say midterm, and I don't really know what that equates to because things are changing so dramatically. I'm going to put it between 12 and 24 months, where I think we'll see a change similar to what we've seen in sales over the last 10 years, where actually the role splits into one being more operational and one being more human-centric. So it depends how we're defining the term recruiter here. But in sales, obviously, you've got the RevOps role, which deals with automation, throughput, and the efficiencies gained from that. And then the human in the loop element, the recruiter speaking to candidates, is dealt with, for example, by the AE. So I think relating that to KPIs, if we're talking about the orthodox recruitment role, that human in the loop element, the interview itself, is the key differentiator in a recruiting process where everything else is largely similar because of automations. So those KPIs perhaps won't change dramatically. It'll be like candidate experience NPS. How good are you at interviewing? How do your assessments lead into quality of hire further down the line? And then the other more AI influenced KPIs, which will be percentage of time worked or hours per recruiter saved per week, will sit perhaps centrally with an operations team. So I think that will be the medium term. And then we'll get to the more consultative role that Adam was referencing earlier, which will be the super user recruiter, which is a talent intelligence consultant, go-to-market strategist, and hiring manager enabler. But I think the medium term, perhaps the role will split and the KPIs will stay largely where they are, but more focus on interviewing and qualitative stuff, and the operational and metric side of things will be handled by, I won't say TA engineer, because that's just a term that has just been bandied about in GTM2 that's made up by Clay, but something to that effect in the medium term. And then after that, I think it will consolidate. So that's where I'm seeing it going.
I'm interested in the point about humans doing, like human recruiters doing interviewing and that being a kind of core differentiator. I think that's one of the areas where they're not going to be doing anything in that area. I don't see human recruiters doing interviewing in the future.
Yeah.
Why do you think this is an important thing?
I think in the medium term, this is why I specified that. If we're talking outside of high volume recruiting, if we look at sales, for example, again, I'll go back to that as an analogy, the automation and the ability to personalize at scale has largely made people check out from cold email. Right. So now sales teams are sending more WhatsApp style messages that are more authentic, that are more kind of hand to hand, which cuts through the noise. It's much more about networking and relationship building. So I think that version in recruiting is the interview process. So I think it will eventually go, but in the medium term, I think that's going to be the key differentiator. And all the other stuff, the top of funnel sourcing, the automation, will be not a differentiator anymore. Access will be completely democratized. So I really think that it's not going to change in the next 12 to 24 months. I think after that, yes, Adam, I agree with you. But I think
I don't think that's an equivalent. I don't think interviewing the candidate is an equivalent to the human, like doing the the sales bit. I think that the interviewing bit is more like a pre-sales qualification type bit. I think the equivalent to where the human can add a lot of value in a sales process is more so the outreach and the sourcing and convincing them and achieving influence rather than the interview bit being like an assessment. But you might be totally right and I might be totally wrong, or we might be saying similar things, but actually it's
I
just
think so. I think
semantics.
Semantics around, maybe we're moving away from the screening and talking about the nurturing, the building that candidate relationship, ultimately closing them. That whole management of that journey and the rapport building that goes around that will be much more to the fore, because the recruiter is no longer going to be, it's no longer going to be enough to do a crazy amount of outreach and book a load of screening calls, because that's going to be done easily with all the enablement tools that are there. So activity metrics will fall by the wayside. So that's where I see it going. And then obviously into the future, it'll evolve even more, I think.
Yeah, really interesting conception, and great to have a bit of contention on the show as well, guys. I think it's actually more, you've probably understated it a little bit, Adriano, because it seems like it will be a dramatic shift in KPIs, because right now I think we are generally measured on activity, aren't we? We're still we're not that far away from having a bunch of people say, look, you need to make 4 hires a month. To do that, you need 20 interviews. To do that, you need like 100 outreach calls or whatever it is. And all of those things just track on back, probably being consistent in terms of what those activity buckets have been for the last 10, 15 years or more. But if it is the case, actually the machine can do all of that activity, then, the KPIs are all over the place. Neil Morelli, go to you. Neil Morelli, should I say. Does this mean that if Adriano's conception is correct, and suddenly we're now doing the value of a human recruiter is the high touch, the human differentiator, the human value added aspect, how do we measure that exactly? Because are we measuring rapport? Is that what we're trying to measure? Like, are we getting to the point where it's super hard to measure the intangibles here?
Well, on that note, I think it is possible that we have new ways to measure the quality of that interaction. We've got new opportunities to capture those interactions, to analyze them qualitatively, to Adriano's point, to then transfer those that captured of that interaction to some sort of quantitative metric. So that's all possible now. Whether or not that changes the nature of those interactions, it's the classic Hawthorne effect, right? When you start to measure a behavior, it changes the nature of that behavior. And so I think that's something to be cognizant of, but I think it's very possible in the future. I just wanted to throw out maybe one quick thought on where the KPIs could be going is I think that's possible that maybe instead of focusing on the outputs, maybe there's more focus on the inputs. And by that, I mean, we could be focusing more on the quality of the job descriptions and the job information that goes into these systems that then is scaled in terms of sourcing, in terms of screening, in terms of follow-up. There's such a critical dependency that those systems have good inputs. And so that's where I think some of the judgments and the contextual knowledge and that consultative aspect of work that human recruiters can bring to the surface is now more possible, because it lowers the barriers to entry to doing good input gathering and input creation. So wanted to throw that out there for conversation as well.
No, really interesting point. And let me just restate it so that I think I understand you accurately, Neil. As an example input, it would be the quality of your intake meeting with the hiring manager. Are you asking the deep questions that really make the difference? Has that been captured in a transcription that actually makes sense to the AI? Because the AI is going to use that to then, generate or auto pipeline a bunch of candidates. So the skill comes into that aspect, rather than what we're currently doing, which is probably still copy and pasting a bunch of JDs and banging it into, you just upload a job ad into an AI now, and then it'll just, off you go, pipeline away. But it will not make a differentiating factor. Is that what you mean, Neil?
Exactly. So I think it could be working better with those internal stakeholders and SMEs to get better information of on the ground, real world information about the job, what it takes, what's required. And then possibly going forward from that, getting better sort of full circle feedback in terms of the outcomes, the post-hire outcomes, and then that feeds into that sort of virtuous cycle. So absolutely, I think you're onto it. Yep.
Yeah, fantastic. Emma Mirrington, let's go to you. Are we seeing any, like, you speak to probably more recruiters even than I do. So are we seeing any sort of change of behavior or sentiment with regards to KPIs within the recruiter community? Because we've just said, oh yeah, it's all going to change, but are we just like consultants speculating away, into the ether? Like, is it actually happening?
Yeah, so it's really interesting actually having this call. I've literally had about 20 calls a week, so I've spoken to about 40 recruiters, heads of TA, just to get their views on this. And I think in terms of the overarching metrics and what's important to businesses, so things like reputation, things like productivity, things like efficiency, quality of hire, impact of hire, governance, so those overarching metrics haven't changed, and I don't think that they will change. But then it's the measures that sit underneath that we then are starting to see some changes. And I would say at the moment it's still very early days. But for example, if we are looking at co-pilots and agents, then sort of similar actually to what Neil said, will we be measuring things like percentage of error rates? So, if there are sort of human interventions that are required because incorrect job descriptions or candidates have been tagged incorrectly, so things like that we'll start to see. So sort of perhaps more on the governance and compliance side. And then also another metric or measure that's coming in under the efficiency banner is around time to source. Because if you've got an agent that's working 24/7 sourcing for you, then you should start to see an impact on your time to hire, time to source, that sort of thing. So we're starting to sort of see gradual inputs and insights. But I think things like sort of reputation, brand, quality of hire, people are still really struggling with how to measure those now, let alone sort of what that looks like sort of moving forwards.
Yeah, really, really interesting feedback, and great to have that sort of concept of maybe some master KPIs that kind of stay as is, but nested within that, we're starting to experiment and have a few different looks. You've just talked about time to source, and everyone watching this is probably thinking, oh my God, this sounds terrible. Because suddenly it feels like I've got 2 days to deliver this job when previously I had 5 days or whatever it is. So this is terrifying stuff. But what do we expect? I mean, what's the general sense as to are the co-pilots today so good that we can like literally chop the time to source in half or even less? Like, what are we talking about here? Is any idea of the numbers?
Not yet, but I was speaking to someone yesterday who now has a 48-hour time to source in terms of sort of the candidate shortlist. So that's really interesting. And then it also, I think, in terms of sort of recruiter skills, one of the things that's come up a lot is around percentage of recruiter time and how that's spent. And somebody was saying to me that they think around 30% of a recruiter time moving forwards is going to be about building and maintaining co-pilots. So how do we then assess that technical capability that's required, which probably a lot of people don't actually have at the moment?
Yeah, we're definitely going to come back to this concept of being a trainer of AI, because it seems to me that is a future task maybe for us recruiters, and maybe something we should be measured against. But let's go back to this concept of 48 hours. Do you reckon that's going to be the default? And this is open to everyone. Will that just generally be accepted as the consensus default? The business is going to say, look, you've got this AI that can literally screen the entire internet. It can do it while you're in your sleep. It can do multi-source, multi-string. There's no reason why this is taking 7 days. I need this long list or a list of candidates in 48 hours. Do you reckon it is accepted at 48 hours?
No, absolutely not. Sorry, go on, Emma.
I was just going to say, it depends on the role. So it's impossible to have a sort of a kind of standard like that. I think for volume recruitment or when you're sort of recruiting very similar roles, you'll be able to sort of start working through. And then this is also where predictive analytics come into play, which again, not many people are doing at the moment, but I think that is sort of an advent that we will start to see, and you'll start to see more success metrics coming into play.
Yeah, really good. How about you guys, Neil and Adriano? Your thoughts on will we go so aggressive at the end of the day? It's gonna, like, real talk. Are we going to just go down? Sourcing gets compressed really down to a couple of days.
I think do you mean time to alignment in terms of building a shortlist? Because candidate responses usually take 24 hours.
Not talking candidate response. Yeah.
I think we can probably get long lists already within 48 hours. It's more like time to pipeline that I think would be the biggest indication of it working and going quicker, right? Candidate response time in that pipeline and that funnel filling up. So yes, I think with sourcing being always on and that automation and scale that comes with it, I think you could get a full pipeline within 7 days, and that would be super aggressive. Normally we say, give us 2 weeks, we're going to go quiet for a bit. I will let you know what the early market signals are, but you're not going to see much. Yeah, perhaps like 5 days is feasible. And then time to shortlist, you could even do it within an hour if we've got that technology available, right? It could scrape, look at the firmographics, profile level stuff, put a shortlist together within like straight after the intake meeting. Time to pipeline probably within 5 days is pretty aggressive, I'd say. So that I'd probably see that coming through.
Really?
Yeah, I'm going to keep banging the input drum. What if you took those 48 hours and said, I'm going to spend these 2 days focusing on the right spec, and then in 48 seconds or 48 minutes, you have your source pipeline. I think that might be the right inversion of effort to quality output. And with the systems that are coming online, I think that's possible.
Yeah.
Can I just add a couple of things to this? So yeah, I mean, the answer is no. In general, to your question, that's not something which is going to be happening. Not for most roles, or not for a lot of roles. But as Emma said, for some roles it can be. It's all about the role itself. But I also feel like we're going back in time a little bit to an age when 6 years ago or so, when there was some absolutely brilliant ideas and technologies in recruiting, which were just ahead of their time. And Emma mentioned predictive analytics. We're now at the point where predictive analytics, with the inclusion of a lot of AI opportunity, can really start to come into its own. And I go back to candidate ID and the concept of building a talent pipeline that's cold, warm, and hire ready. And if you know who's cold, who's warm, and who's hire ready, not just who can do the job and who can't do the job, who's actually interested in you today, not 3 months ago when they applied, but today, then that is the difference between those things. Are the difference between a 48-hour to getting all the interviews in the calendar, or as Neil said, like 25 minutes and all the interviews in the calendar or whatever it might be, and not being able to do it.
Yeah, really interesting, everyone. Folks, what do you think in the audience here? Do you reckon sourcing just literally gets compressed so that but your boss will no longer be tolerating, oh, I need 2 weeks to come up with something? Back in my day, I think you could easily get away with 2 weeks. I mean, you and me worked together, didn't we? So back in 20 years ago, it was totally reasonable to say, look,
I'm sure it was only 10,
yeah, 10 years ago. But it was like, so technology is helping us crush down this time, because obviously we're dealing with digital documents, digital data. AI, one problem I think we're confident AI might be able to solve is to be able to just pound through like loads of data really fast and pull back some records. That seems feasible. Adam, I take your point. You've got to interact with those people. Maybe there is an interaction or engagement crisis on the back of everyone being super fast in compressing the sourcing. So imagine it all becomes pretty much table stakes that anybody can generate the shortlist in 24 hours, 48 hours, or let's press the outreach button, automated, boom, it goes out. Everyone's going to switch off because you're going to get hammered by that. Therefore, your ability to actually engage, that may well come back in with the human element, and perhaps that extends the timeline, which brings back, in fact, this relationship building, this human in the loop capability. Now, I read an article it's going to go in a newsletter this Sunday. It's really quite kind of portentous, but I think it's probably true. Is technology basically going to favor, like there's a seniority effect? Because the people who basically already have the relationships. So I'm assuming here, everyone on this call, for instance, we've got pre-built relationships. There's probably 150, 200 people that could answer our call no matter what right now. That gives us an advantage compared to a young person entering the world of work, coming in. They're just a no-name, got 100 connections on LinkedIn or whatever. They don't have any social capital out there. They're just going to be knocking on the door, and basically people are going to ignore them. So do you reckon that's going to happen? Basically, there's going to be a moat opening up between the experienced people pre-AI versus the younger people coming in.
Yeah, I think the data is already showing that. There's some studies already that are showing, I think there's a 13% decrease in the number of entry-level roles that are open. So we're already kind of noticing that in the talent, marketplace. What do you do about it? I think the onus is on organizations, companies, to really invest in that entry-level talent and to redesign the jobs and have different expectations for them so that they can surface in ways that they might not have surfaced before, where everyone's just at that. It's just very, very hard to distinguish. And those jobs are just not really where they need to be in terms of the organizational structure. So we're already seeing this. What you do about it is another question.
Yeah, big question for everyone, folks. I think we've all got a stake in ensuring young people feel as if they've got a step onto an economically viable future, even as we gain competitive advantage personally, because I think we do have competitive advantage against some of those younger people coming in. That's totally a look of when you started your career, and that shouldn't penalize the younger people coming in. Anyway, go on, Adam, you say something?
Yeah, I actually don't think it's so much to do with your experience. And I think it's, at this point, I think there's so many things that are levelers for like someone that's coming into recruiting now versus someone that's been in it for 20 years. And I believe that the one thing that's going to separate people that are going to be successful, those who are not, from here, is simply growth mindset.
Sure, I do believe that as well. I think there are advantages for young people as well, in the sense that they're coming in without a lot of the mental legacy of working under old systems and, you know, struggling with switching into a new way of working. They've come more natively into it. So I think there's pros and cons. You may be right. But I do think that the relationship side is going to be hard to break through. Let's move on to that. Let's think probably KPI. One of the KPIs of a recruiter, I'd say, is like, can you build a community? Can you build an audience? Can you help me build a brand amongst the people that you know, we want to be recruiting for? Is there any techniques that we could recommend to people here? Like, what is the process to do that in an AI-enabled world where, you know, all the comms we're seeing, we're starting to doubt and, you know, distrust, because, you know, I can't trust whether that's actually a human being or not.
Well, recruiters who are able to generate subject matter authority, no matter whether they're like in their 20s or in their 50s, they're the ones who are going to be able to build that community, and they're and so younger people have advantages in that they've grown up with social media, and they've grown up with the internet, they've grown up with mobile phones, whereas people my age maybe didn't grow up with any of these things, so we have to learn them. But what we do have is more life experience. But the ability to generate subject matter experience, can look at Charlie Kirk. Guy was 31 years old. I mean, you know, I'm not saying I was pro or against anything to do with him, but like, incredible subject matter authority for somebody of his young age.
Yeah, and you could do it very quickly with authentic comms. So I think one of the ways in which, I mean, I've been doing a lot of video recently, and I'm kind of trying to get into this idea that actually video communication from a marketing perspective may actually be a key thing to try and experiment with, because it's harder to fake. I think people are going to move away from text. And ultimately, it's why it's rough and ready, walk and talk. It's not a polished video, because I don't want it edited. People need to know, yeah, I'm actually walking in, you know, down the street here. So communicate authenticity, do it on video, make it rough and ready. Maybe that's one of the employer branding journeys that we go down. Adriano, you're nodding your head there. What are your thoughts on this?
I just think the discussion around the KPIs and also this personal branding element, it seems that paradoxically, I think, I can't remember his name, the chap from Team Taylor, said paradoxically these evolutions in capability that we've got at our fingertips are, like you said, it's just going to create noise and make us check out almost, and we don't trust certain mediums of communication anymore. So we are going to go more old school video, in-person interaction. So I think, yeah, in terms of the personal brand building and becoming a subject matter expert, I think authenticity will come through. Old school means of communicating will come to the fore. Not right now. I think there's a huge opportunity to scale messaging and using AI to craft compelling narratives and then distribute those across channels. And the people that do that now will get a head start, but that will slowly lose its kind of first mover advantage over time. And you mentioned the nostalgia economy is going to be coming back. Like, similarly with recruitment, it's going to be like nostalgiaconsulting.net. And like, we don't use the internet. You can speak to me on the phone or send me a text message, or you can meet me for a coffee. Other than that, I'm not available. And I think, like, possibly in 24 months, that's where we're going to end up, because no one will trust anything anymore. But we've got 24 months to before that happens and get a bit of a head start.
You heard it here first. Adriano is going to convert his business into an artisanal recruitment service. Yes, you got to go meet him.
From CV to table.
That's it. But it's really interesting because this is a consumer journey we've been through, hasn't it? Because we do go and enjoy artisanal coffees, for instance. Why? Because we want to see the guy grinding the beans or something. We want to see the reality of it being produced rather than some sort of sense that it's just machine made. And I think maybe digital communication goes down that same route as well. We reject the machine made. We want the human kind of labor value in there. I just want to how we can value that. Let's talk about how we recruit for this new generation of recruiters. If we're going to say, okay, KPIs are going to shift, we're going to start measuring input value, sort of the capability of generating sort of that human interaction. Some people are better or worse than that. Let's face facts. How does it then go towards the sorts of personality types, stroke characteristics, stroke skills that we're looking for in the next generation of recruiters into the business? Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, so we've started to see it already, actually, in terms of themes with the training programs that we offer. I would say probably 2 years ago, it was very much around technical recruiting skills, so like sourcing, etc. And we've seen a complete shift to things like stakeholder management, business partnering, and personal brand, which a year ago, people just weren't really interested in at all. So I think we're already starting to see that shift. And that it's a real sort of shift away from some of these technical recruiting skills to some of the softer skills. However, I think where there is one slight difference is this whole comfortability with, if that's even a word, I've just made it up, the ability to be comfortable with technology and building and maintaining co-pilots. I think that is probably a technical skill that we will need people to see.
Yeah, really, really interesting. By the way, folks, did you remember the tech sourcing mania? We had like 10 years of this, and it really hit an amazing point where everyone was looking for that amazing technical sourcer that was an expert at interrogating systems and pulling out bits of data that no one else could find. Has it dropped off the cliff? Where are the technical sourcing guys going? I mean, I think it probably has. AI seems to have, at least from a narrative perspective, overwhelmed the relevancy of it. Be shamed, because I think you can still, there may still be a competitive advantage for a person who is a super sourcer that can find the people that even AI cannot find. And this goes a little bit to, the different sort of verticals that maybe are not overly digitized, as you mentioned, Adam, different verticals of work where people might actually want to hide themselves. A lot of technical people understand they're going to be processed by AI and are starting to sabotage their digital footprints such that they won't be discovered by AI. Are they the people you might want to hire in future? Maybe that might still require a human recruiter. Okay, folks, I want to keep going on this, switch to the co-pilot training thing, but we are moving fast towards the end of this show. Only 10 minutes left to go before we come off air. It's obviously a conversation we need to continue going. We'll do another couple of episodes of this. Clearly, we need more to say. But Brainfood Live should never be a situation where we are a bottleneck for conversations in industry. We want to keep these conversations going, whether you're on or off air, with me or not with me. The way to do that is very straightforward. Grab your LinkedIn URL, stick it in the chat stream, and just connect with everyone else who's done the same. If you're watching this on any of the LinkedIn Lives out there, do the same thing. Grab your LinkedIn URL, stick it in the comment thread, and then just connect with everyone who's done the same. Bottom line is we've got about 400 or 500 people watching this across all these channels. You're going to walk away with like 50, 60 new connections that's going to help you going forward. They care about this topic. It's going to increase your collective intelligence. And the reason why I bang on about this every week, by the way, is because I do believe collective intelligence is one of the ways in which we have an advantage against AI. So make sure you're heavily networked. There's no excuse. Okay, let's talk about co-pilot and training co-pilots. Neil, you got any experience with this, mate?
Yeah, I was just thinking, how will we be working with co-pilots? And by the way, when I think of the word co-pilot, I think of when someone working side by side, so to speak, with an AI assistant, and you're prompting the AI. It's expecting some sort of prompt from you. It gives you a result. It goes on from there. there are, of course, more agentic systems that then work autonomously without your prompting, and you just give it some sort of intent or goal, and then you set that up within a workflow. So by training copilots, if you mean, well, our recruiters are going to be creating and annotating custom data to fine-tune models that are privately hosted within their own infrastructure, probably not. But if by training you mean customizing more of these individual instances of these foundational model tools like ChatGPT, if they're building their own custom GPTs, which, by the way, I think is a very underappreciated feature within the ChatGPT sort of ecosystem and sort of tooling, or if they're configuring and orchestrating their agents within a workflow. But if that's what you mean by training, or that's what we're talking about by training, then yes, I think all of those things are pertinent and relevant for recruiters to learn more about and just become more comfortable with those.
There's also a really interesting. Go ahead, Emma.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I heard something really interesting at an event the other day, which is about the concept of the digital twin, but who owns the digital twin? Because one of the issues that you have when somebody leaves an organization is around knowledge management, knowledge retention. And so if you've got somebody's digital twin, then actually you don't necessarily lose knowledge when they move on to another organization. But who should own the digital twin? Because surely that is then their data, they own it, their IP. So I think we're going to see some really interesting case law coming into play with this sort of thing too, as in terms of who actually owns that knowledge.
That's why you need a system of collaboration so that everybody can go and make use of each other's IP, which is what they're building for the organization and being paid to build for the organization. So I think everything that the recruiter is doing in the context of their job has to be available to everybody else and cannot be allowed to go out the door when they leave, which is happening, of course, in every recruitment team in the world, pretty much.
That's basically a disincentive for individuals to do the training if they don't get the competitive advantage even within the business. So you've basically got kind of a dilemma there, because let's say you've got a team of 100 recruiters, your staffing agency, 100 recruiters, everyone's going to benefit from the joint thing. So, how much effort am I going to put into that? Because maybe I want to put my feet up because I know that, Emma's going to do all the training. So I think we're going to have a problem with incentivizing training on this. There's so many echoes, by the way, of how LinkedIn was 10, 15 years or so ago, because if you're aggressively building your network on LinkedIn and you start becoming, doing the content and you're drawing people's attention to your business, to your employer's business, it's like, okay, do you own the LinkedIn or do you not? And we kind of got to a position where we ended up accepting a kind of a fudge, didn't we? Because I think, wasn't it Hayes? It was a very famous case in the UK where Hayes demanded the person turn over the LinkedIn. And what was the outcome of that? I think that the person didn't turn it over or something.
They were forced to.
They were forced to turn it over, right? Yeah.
They had to shut their LinkedIn account. They had to download all their contacts, hand it over, and shut it down. Yeah, but let me just give you the downside of that, of like allowing everybody to use their own flair and spice and whatever in the recruitment process. Very well-known hotel chain. I know. I was looking at all their job adverts, and they allow their recruiters to go and use their own spice and flair, and they all represent the company in a completely different way. That's a real problem with candidate experience, go-to-market messaging, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of things need to be standardized. They just have to be.
Yeah, and by the way, Rob Walker just put LinkedIn's our personal. LinkedIn did anyone ever also see like an update on your T's and C's on LinkedIn? I think that was pinged out about 2-3 days ago. So have a scrutiny of that. But we kind of understand where that's going to be. Obviously, companies are going to protect their own IP. They're going to make sure that your behavior is going to be training their stuff as well. Probably we as individuals may have just kind of hit that sweet spot 10, 15 years or so ago where we weren't so fluent as to who owned what, and we could walk away with our connections and so on. So yeah, very, very interesting. Any other thoughts on training on co-pilots? Neil's talked about, okay, won't be doing that technical training. Adriano, do you agree with that? Or do you think that may be another sort of evolutionary sort of a branch off? Maybe there's a bunch of recruiters that do get super technical and start fiddling with the foundational model.
I think there are already people that have already had a natural affinity to experimenting with doing custom GPTs and other automations that naturally lend themselves to owning that and maybe being that centralized function for the business, like Adam was saying, to make sure that use is standardized and playbooks are scaled across teams and functions, and therefore the messaging is consistent, etc. Similarly to what's happening in sales orgs, again, to use an adjacent space, there aren't enough people right now that are at that level to scale training and build custom GPTs around. And what we're seeing in that space, and I think will be the same in talent acquisition, is companies will pay third parties, agencies or consultants to come in and do the training, set up the systems for them, and then train the team on that. It will be done externally, but the IP will be immediately handed over as part of the contract, because there just isn't enough talent that's able to do that at the level that's needed. So even just like you said, recruiters messing around with custom GPTs, it's great, but one person's prompt will spit out a question that's completely leading, badly structured, and the answer that comes from that will be horrendous. It took 2 minutes to make, and the scorecard was quick and looks nice, but it's not actually valid. So I think, yeah, there should be some governance around that, but I don't think there's enough skill set in the market right now for each team to have a person to do that properly. So I think there'll be a pool of consultants that do that for businesses over time until the talent density increases. But yeah, I think there's so much various kind of quality. It's such a huge spectrum of ability using those tools, and there's also thousands of tools as well. So I think, yeah, it should be controlled first, and then taken from third parties.
Adriana, can I ask you a question relating to your business? So you said at the beginning that there's two ways this is all going to go. One is like the RevOps equivalent, where we've got like systems engineered to automate most of it. And then on the other side, you're going to have like almost the equivalent of like concierge service type stuff for that in-demand talent and exec level and whatever. For a business like yours, is the opportunity to do both of these, or are you going, actually, that is where companies are going to need the most help in one or other? That'd be interesting to know.
Yeah, we're deciding that at the moment. I think the opportunity for us stands in the systemization of the go-to-market process, the top of funnel. So companies, for example, don't have the ability to send email at scale because it risks their core domain. It'll burn it within 2 months. But like a business development consultancy, if you've got email warmers and you've got lots of inboxes already going, you've got a system to do that. You can use email. And with LinkedIn's email costs going up 17x, I think soon, companies aren't going to really be able to do outreach at scale as conversion rates go down. So yes, I think the opportunity lies in setting up that engine for teams to have access to that scale. Let's say they're going into a new territory or scaling a new function. I think that's where the opportunity lies. And that's what we're focusing on, actually. Of course,
it's like demand generation. It's
like an on-demand talent intelligence tool as well. So you get early market signals, and you're getting kind of codified rejection reasons, all that stuff that you would get from a proper sourcing function, which actually we found out, having spoken to like 85 odd talent leaders in the last few months, that there's not a lot of dedicated sourcing and TA teams at the moment. It's really 360 and that's it. So they aren't getting really those market signals that they should be getting. You've got a recruiter sitting at their desk in the morning going, right, I'm going to send 30 emails. Where shall I start? They're doing it at the rec level. They're not doing it at the market level. So I think there's a big opportunity there. But again, really high quality interviewing skills is still a huge differentiator that's very, very important to select for.
Yeah, I think we need to try and find a way to convert that into value. It's the intangible. How do you measure it? Part of the problem is that we end up sort of leaning on the stuff that's easy to measure. And then because we've then measured it, we then value that ahead of what's actually really important, which has always been the tough to measure. We've not been able to measure it. Therefore, somehow that's disappeared in our sort of mind view. And in fact, that's where the secret sauce is, because if all of the tools end up converging the capability, we all up level. So what happens when every recruiter on the planet is now AI enabled? The differentiator has got to be that intangible sort of, that mycelium connections that we have, the spiritual connection. We're going to go into that world where, the vibe is going to be the thing that makes the difference. Okay, folks, we're going to have to do a part 2 on this because obviously we've just scratched the surface of this topic. New recruitment KPIs for tomorrow's talent acquisition. Part 2, I'm already going to just set this up. It's just we need to keep talking about it because there's another angle we haven't talked about at all, which is, does the co-pilots, are they so efficacious that they're going to enable hiring managers to take on a lot of the activities that are currently being centralized by talent acquisition? And if so, how do we measure that? Like, are recruiters then turning into the trainers of the hiring manager on things like best practice on outreach and what is a good to go message or whatever it might be? Because some of the things that we do understand is that when we're talking about this engagement crisis, which I think will happen, the ones that are able to engage with the hiring manager are going to outcompete the ones that are going with an agent or with a recruiter, because candidates want to speak to the senior person that they may be reporting to. That we know for a fact. Therefore, enabling sort of your business to do a lot of the recruitment work may end up being part of what we do. Challenging stuff, because it means we're kind of like taking parts of our core business, of our core function, and sliding it back into the business. But it may be one of the things that we've got to try and do if we are to become a super worker within business. Anyway, that's about it. We're out of time. Let's enjoy the last of the summer wine, so to say. Thank you to our guests. Emma Murnson, great to see you. We're going to promote the survey. What's the survey called, Emma?
Yes. It's just the annual report, annual survey, State of the Nation, what's going on in the world of talent acquisition for 2026. So yeah, I'll pop a link in the chat. Thanks, Hung.
All right, we'll make sure everyone does that. Great to see you, Emma. Adriano, thanks for kicking off the conversation. Great conversation starter as always. Hopefully we'll see you soon, sir. Neil, wonderful to have you on the show. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom with us. Great to have you here for the first time. Hopefully it won't be the last time. And Adam Gordon, of course, great to see you. Thank you for being co-pilot, mate, a human co-pilot. We'll see you all next week, folks. Thanks for watching.
Great show.
It was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Good one.
Yeah, it is.
I thought it was strong.
Yeah, great guests.
We need part
Topics
2, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Great guests. Topic I really enjoy. I like that, all of that stuff. And
if we did a straight up part 2, I reckon we should do the hiring manager thing. What do you reckon? Like, I mean,
no, my belief on that is I know 3 or 4 people who would want to talk about that. People like Toby Culshaw, for example. He's done a lot of like study and work in that area. Undoubtedly, what you said about that is going to be happening. Hiring managers are going to be doing more of their own things. However, it's going to be like click 2 buttons instead of like, they're going to have to be super enabled.
And it won't be for every job. Like ultimately, if it's like really, the job's obviously going to change, but we're not going to centralize as much as we are. We're going to focus on different things. I think we're going to coach more, as you say, maybe less people doing the job of the function, but it might actually increase in status. Anyway, listen, that's about it. What are you doing for the weekend, Adam? Anything interesting, mate?
I've got investor calls this evening.
Oh my God, it is interesting.
And then rugby, yeah. So my rugby club's got a very, very important game tomorrow. They got promoted to the Premiership in Scotland this season. They've played 4-1-4, and they've got the 5th game of the season at home against the local rivals, and it's on TV on BBC Scotland or BBC Alba or something like that.
So your club, meaning you're a fan or you're a participant or what, you player?
Well, I play for the Old Boys team, but I'm also a board member and I am marketing director.
I love it. Fantastic. Well, listen, what's the name of the team, mate?
GHA. Number 2 in the Scottish, GHA. Number 2 in the Scottish Premier League right now. Glasgow Hutchison's Aloysians. Hutchison's Grammar School former pupils, which is the school I went to. Aloysians, St. Aloysius former pupils, which those 2 merged, and another club called Clarkston. They all merged about 20 years ago.
There we go. Good luck to GHA.
Yes.
Good luck with it, Adam. Appreciate it, and enjoy the weekend, mate.
Cheers. Bye.